Custodes have some awesome newness. Darn it, GW, you are crushing it on these new detachments. They're all cool. They all operate. They're all really functional, and they give us a brand new way to play the game. So Unleash the Lions is basically what Auric Champions should have been. This video is not going to be going through all the stratagems and enhancements. You've seen those videos. They're out there already. I'll briefly talk about some of them, but what we're going to do today is learn how this detachment works, what we're going to build, who are the winners from the detachment, who are the losers from the detachment, and then I'm going to give you a army list as an example to get you started as well. So basically, guys, everything in this detachment, you're going to get +1 to hit and wound when you're 6 inches away from an ally. This is, of course, unless you are a vehicle. So if you're a vehicle, it doesn't matter, because if you're a vehicle, that means that you're probably a Cladius gravity tank, which is already freaking good. And you don't need the help anyway. Now, this does apply to all Adeptus Custodes units. And that's the sick thing, right? It'll apply to all Custodes units, meaning if you take an Imperial agent and you lead a Custodes unit with them, that Imperial agent will also be getting +1 to hit and +1 to wound, assuming your unit is outside of 6 inches of any allies. So are you taking Inquisitor Draxus leading Custody Guard who have double shoots when they're all +1 to hit and wound, including Draxus? Yes, please. How about a normal Inquisitor? Honestly, a normal Inquisitor gets a huge glow up here. His 18-inch Psychic Shockwave, which is 2d6 shots. I think it's like AP2, Strength 3, Damage 1, also Dev Wounds. Well, suddenly it gets the +1 to wound as well. That's pretty dang solid. Not to mention the CP regeneration. So there are a lot of different ways to run this. Your Sisters of Silence get a huge glow up here. So everyone's going to really, really like it. So there's great enhancements. There's solid stratagems. Like I said, if you really want to go through all the enhancements and stratagems, I can do it for you real quick, but you've probably seen all of that. So I think it's better if we just get into the winners and the losers. I'll just do the quickest overview possible for it, okay? So you've got 4 enhancements: Superior Creation. A model gets to get up after it dies with full wounds remaining. Very cool. Then you have Praesidius, which is one of your Custodes models, gets blown up in stealth. Pretty damn cool. Fierce Conqueror, which is going to go on a shield captain only, and you get to add 2 to the attacks characteristic of melee weapons equipped by the bearer for every 5 enemy models within 6 inches of the bearer. This can be a crazy amount of attacks that a Custodian character can get, especially if you're going into hordes. And then you have possibly the best strategy, the best enhancement in the entire game for the points: Ad Mani Mortis, which can only go on a shield captain, but you get to improve the strength characteristic of melee weapons by 3 and improve the AP and damage by 1. It's stupid how powerful that is, and it will get nerfed, so enjoy it for the meantime. Then your stratagems are all pretty easy. So Gilded Champion is sick. It'll allow you to use your once per game ability on a shield captain or any Custodes character again, but it can only be used on each character once. That's great. Unleash the Lions will allow you to split your Alaris Custodians into a massive unit. So if you have a 6-man squad of Alaris Custodians and you use the CP on it, you can only do it in your command phase, and they have to be on the battlefield. Unfortunately, they do have to be on the battlefield. You can't do it while they're in Deep Strike. But what'll happen is it'll now turn into 6 individual units. So this actually can solve our unit activation problem that we have for Custodes. I guarantee you we're going to see a army out there that is going to want to be running 18 Alaris and then just wants to split each one of them into individual units, so you end up with 18 individual Alaris units. Someone's going to do it. It might be me. You get Maneuver and Fire, which is the fallback shoot and charge that all Custodes basically get. You get a Fight on Death, +2 if you're a character model. You do have a reactive move if an opponent shoots you, so you get to move d6 inches after your shot. And then lastly, you can give precision to all the attacks of models in your unit, which is, iffy. But let's get into the really cool stuff here. So who are the winners and losers of this detachment, and how are we going to play it? Winners number 1, Trajan freaking Valoris. This guy, I've actually been running him solo in a lot of my detachments recently, especially like in Shield Host, and I love him. I absolutely love him. He has a lot of different utility in him. He is a great model to rapid ingress into a heroic intervention, because one of the cool things about him is he can 100% basically tank anything in the game. So let's say like even Angron runs in and he's like, "Aha, Avast, I'm at ye." And he charges in and he directs some of his attacks into Trajan Valoris. Well, Trajan just goes, boom. I am going to have a 2-up invulnerable save. And with a 2-up invulnerable save and his 4-up invulnerable and his 5-up Field of Pain, Angron probably doesn't kill Trajan Valoris, which is pretty damn sick. That's not bad. And then you also have the ability to, in your turn, now you can fall back with him, shoot and charge, and spend 1 CP to allow him to use his once per game ability again, which will allow him to double his attacks, go in with his 12 attacks, strength 10 plus 1 to wound, and he causes a lot of havoc that way. So he is a huge winner in this particular detachment where he gets to activate that special ability twice per game. So it's kind of awesome, and I love it, and I will be using him. Then you have the Alaris Shield Captain. Plus 1 to wound on this guy is just really cool, especially when you consider his once per game special ability where he just gets to turn all damage into 1. It can really make him a super tough cookie to crack. He likes all the enhancements, 1 enhancement to stand back up on full life. Awesome. He likes the enhancement to give him a better axe. So you can give him a Admani Mortis to give him that super axe, which is going to be strength 12, AP 2, and damage 4. It's just shocking. Now, me personally, I probably take the spear still. Go to strength 10, AP 3, damage 3. I think I like that more. It's just the AP 3 seems to be a better deal for me than the AP 2, damage 4. Especially when you consider whenever you attack any unit that has half damage, damage 4 and damage 3 might as well be the same because you're always rounding up on half damage attacks anyway. So if you're hitting a Satan, for example, or the Incarn, for example, well, damage 4 goes to damage 2, and damage 3 goes to damage 2. There are certain cases where that damage 4 will be better, but like it's not better against Deathwing Knights because Deathwing Knights are, 4 wounds minus 1 damage. So damage 3, damage 4 might as well be the same against them. Then you have, well, not necessarily the same, but it's going to take the same amount of attacks going through to kill a Deathwing Knight, right? Then you've got some edge cases where it does matter, right? So let's take the Emperor's Children freaking Demon Prince, right? The one who's minus 1 damage. I think it's the one with wings. Well, okay, damage 4 is actually a little bit better there. Having strength 12 plus 1 to wound is pretty damn sick, especially when you consider that there's a lot of things out there like that are at that, toughness 11, toughness 12. But remember, these guys are generally going to be attached to your Alaris Custodes, which means they're already rerolling wound rolls anyway. So I don't really think the strength breakpoint is that big a deal. I think it's either do you want the AP or the damage. So I'm going to go for the AP personally. But basically, this guy's nasty. They like all the enhancements, blah, 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 blah. Let's talk about the Bite Captain. Fierce Conqueror is always going on the Bite Captain for me. The Bite Captain loves this freaking detachment because he has one of the strongest abilities in the entire game when he is leading his Virtus Praetors. The problem is it often just gets popped in a turn where you don't want to have to pop it. But now that you can do it twice, ooh, baby, is it pretty freaking cool. So now you get to take the Bite Captain with his bikes, Virtus Praetors, charge them into the unit, kill them, or don't, doesn't, whatever, and then just move back behind cover in terrain where your opponent can't see you in the same turn. And then you get to do it again in the game because you're going to spend 1 CP to reload his once per game ability. Not to mention, when you use Fierce Conqueror on this guy, he only has 6 attacks. He doesn't have the 7 attacks of your other captains, which is really freaking weird. But now, if you want to charge him in, he's going to get a lot of bonus attacks. And that means a lot, especially when you're going into, say, like Hordes. If you're going into ACDC, or if you're going into 20-man Orc Boy Blobs, or 20-man Necron Warrior Blobs, or whatever. This can really make a huge difference in the amount of attacks that you get through. Not to mention, you're still a Custode, so, you're getting sustained hits or lethal hits or whatever that's going through. So it's very, very exciting, and it causes a massive difference in the amount of damage that you can actually put out. So Bite Captain is a huge winner here. Let's talk about a few more winners that love this detachment. Just basically all infantry shooting. Being plus 1 to wound with low strength guns, massive increase in damage across the board, especially when you're taking things like your Custodian Guard who get to shoot twice. Well, now they can shoot twice in the same turn, and then they can also do that to leaders, hint, which we'll talk about in a moment. And being plus 1 to wound with your strength 4 actually really, really matters. It also really matters for things like your Alaris Custodians. So your Alaris Custodians who also get to reroll wound rolls against your monsters and vehicles, suddenly their shooting is popping transports because they're no longer wounding on 6s with full rerolls, they're wounding on 5s with full rerolls, and that is a very, very, very big deal. The plus 1 to hit that they get, as long as you're, outside of 6 inches of allies, which is pretty darn easy to accomplish, that will counter stealth and other huge nerfs that affect Custodes in big ways. So remember when you're playing, Skitarii Hunter Cohort, or you're playing Flyblown Host or something, any army where they're going to be minus 1 to be hit because of stealth or whatever other effects, that normally can cripple Custodes shooting because we rely on the reliability because we don't have necessarily the volume to put out. Well, you get to ignore that now effectively because you're also going to be plus 1 to hit even when you're minus 1 to be hit. So that is a mad increase in the amount of damage that Custodes do. The plus 1 to hit will also help counter things like Plague Company Death Guard, which is historically, Death Guard is just generally speaking, it doesn't matter which edition it is, they tend to counter Custodes pretty well. But now, the Custodes, even if we're going to be minus 1 weapon skill in melee, we're still going to be plus 1 to hit, which is a very big deal. Oftentimes, it'll turn us back into hitting them on 2s, or it'll keep us hitting on 3s instead of hitting on 4s if the Plague Marines are like -1 weapon skill and -1 to be hit, for example. And that is a massive, massive difference in the amount of damage that we're able to do to them. Lastly, the Alaris, we've already spoken about it, but being able to split into a big squad into multiple units, all can now uppy downy, that can just create a crazy amount of board pressure. If I have a 6-man squad of Alaris and then turn 1 in my command phase, I just say, cool, now I have 6 1-man squads of Alaris. All my secondaries are covered and all my board presence is covered. I will pick them up at the end of my opponent's turn, and then I will just drop them in places where I really want them. And that can be mad for screening. It can be mad for getting my secondaries. And honestly, each individual Alaris is still a force to be reckoned with. Each individual one can still handle small skirmishing battles, and they can team up to really force your opponent to split attacks into different units. It can just cause a lot of problems. So Alaris freaking love it. Talk about some more freaking winners. Wardens, guys, they went up in points, and they should have. And they punch harder than they used to, which is pretty freaking sick. Now, I am probably not going to be running the Wardens. I never liked the Warden spam. It was always good. I'm not arguing that. It was always very good, but I never liked them. I think they're a boring, just irritating way to play the game. And with the points going up, I think I really want more units. So I'm going to stay basically away from Wardens. Maybe one unit will find its way into my list. But as you'll see, the list I'm going to give you guys today, there will be no Wardens in there. Blade Champion, he went up in points slightly, so he went up by 10 points, and he punches harder. Now, there's actually an argument for solo Blade Champions in this detachment, because solo Blade Champions, they still get advance and charge, because the way their ability is worded is when this model's unit advances and charges, or advances once per game, they can also charge. So they will still be able to advance and charge when they're solo, and they're not leading units. Of course, you could lead guard with them or whatever, but solo Blade Champions, there's a reality where that works. You can take a lone up Blade Champion who's got stealth, who just puts him on the line in your deployment zone. Can't be shot because he's a lone up. You know, obviously you would have to give him the enhancement. And then you just have him go contest objectives and deal with skirmishers. It's actually kind of pretty awesome. Then, like we said earlier, your allies who lead Custodes are also getting the +1 to hit and +1 to wound as part of the detachment ability, because the detachment rules for Adeptus Custodes units. So Draxus and your normal Inquisitors, Inquisitor Greyfax, all of these characters love leading Custode Guard. They get to shoot twice in the same turn where they're all +1 to wound with it. It is a lot of damage output. Then you've got your Sisters of Silence. Alea becomes a lot more attractive. She went down in points. Now she can lead her Vigilators, who are also going to be +1 hit and +1 to wound. She can lead Witch Seekers, actually, so you can double up on that little scout move and then have a little bit of melee punch along with your Flamers, which, by the way, can we talk about Witch Seekers? Because all of their Flamers are now +1 to wound. That matters. It can make a world of difference, especially when you're using the Flamers into higher toughness infantry, such as Orcs and things like that. Not that anyone thinks Orcs are going to be a menace with the new detachments, and since, yes, they will be. So yeah, all of your Sisters of Silence went up. Now, there are a few losers, okay? Poor Sagittarium, pour one out for your homies. They still suck, man. It's just, I hate this because it's like such an amazing model and such a cool unit. They still don't have Assault. They're still only AP1. Even with +1 to wound, it's like they're more expensive than Guard. Why wouldn't you just take Guard? Guard are just better in every single way. Like, especially when Guard get the +1 to wound, Guard are just better now. Man, I don't know when they're going to fix Sagittarium. I don't think they will, to be honest with you. But, you know, I'm not really complaining too much here, because honestly, I think GW has spent a lot of time on making Custodes fun. This detachment was a love letter to the fans to kind of make up for such a crappy codex when they released it, and I think they did a good job. But yeah, it's sad to see Sagittarium are just not getting what they need. They would need at least AP2 and Assault on their guns to make them actually valuable. Then we can talk about the Dreads. Now, this is a method of balancing that doesn't just apply to Custodes. It applies to a lot of different detachments in the game, of armies in the game, basically every single one of them. And Games Workshop continues to do things like this, which I hate. Were Adeptus Custodes Dreadnoughts a problem? No. As a matter of fact, they were so not a problem, you never saw a single Dreadnought taken in any detachment except for one detachment. Does that mean that and that would be Solar Spearhead, of course. Now, if you have Solar Spearhead and everyone's taking the Dreads and they're doing really, really well, does that mean that Dreads are the problem? No! But they nerfed the Dreads, which means there's zero chance you'll ever take a Dread in any other detachment. If the problem is Solar Spearhead, do something about Solar Spearhead. Stop nerfing models that are already not taken because they're bad. They only function in this one detachment. Just change the detachment if that's your problem. And this applies to every single army in the game. So I really just hope GW can learn from that feedback and listen to it. But anyway, guys, let me get you into an army example to get you started, because I am very excited about this detachment, and there's a lot of ways to run it. This is just one example. There's going to be tons of other things out there, but maybe this can help get your creative juices going and get you started. So let me know what you think. I'm already excited about this. So I'm going to take 3 characters in it. I'm taking Trajan Valoris, Shield Captain on Alaris Terminator armor, and he's going to run Ad Money Mortis for the Super Spear. And then I'm going to take Shield Captain on Dawn Eagle Jetbike, and I'm going to give him the, or not the Auric Mantle. That was the the placeholder I put in. I'm going to give him, what's the name of it? Fierce Conqueror. That's the one. So I'll just delete this and write in Fierce Conqueror. That's the one that's going to give him +2 attacks for every 5 enemy models within 6 inches. And remember, his base is pretty big, so that could be a lot of distance. Fierce Conqueror. I'm going to spell it wrong because I'm a bad speller. Then I got 2 squads of 4 Custodian Guard, 2 squads of Alaris Custodians, 1 3-man, 1 2-man, 1 squad of Venatori Custodians, 1 squad of Prosecutors, 3 squads of Witch Seekers. Witch Seekers become quite valuable in this detachment, in my opinion. And then I'm going to take the big 3-man squad of Virtus Praetors. The 3-man squad of Virtus Praetors, of course, going with the Shield Captain on Dawn Eagle Jetbike. I will take 1 Caladius Grav Tank, because I still think we need Caladius Grav Tanks, and then I'm going to have Inquisitor Draxus. Draxus will, of course, be leading one of the guard. Trajan Valoris is not leading guard. Trajan Valoris will be running solo. So in this army, I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 units. And I'm probably going to have my Shield Captain on in Alaris Terminator armor lead one of the, well, I'm certainly going to have him leading one of the Custodians. If I need an extra unit, I can always use the Lions, Unleash the Lions, to get myself an extra unit. So I could, say, split the 2-man in turn 1 to get an extra unit. So now I have 13 units, which really solves a big problem that Custodes have. So I love this detachment. You hit harder, you keep your accuracy in hitting. It makes a big difference in the way that we play the game. I'm not the biggest fan of all of the strats, but some of them are just really darn exciting, and the enhancements rock, and the detachment rule rocks. So I'm really looking forward to hearing other people's creativity on how they're going to build it. Yeah, I know Wardens are still good, even though they're probably too expensive to be running 3 squads of them. But so I'm going to stay away from those. But otherwise, I want to hear your creativity and what you're thinking as far as this works. I know there is another list I'm considering where I'm running, say, 3 solo Blade Champs. I might run 3 Alaris Terminator Captains just solo. There is a lot of stuff in here, and I'm really excited to cook. With that, I'm going to take off. So I hope you all have an amazing freaking day. Crump on. I'll be back tomorrow, and I'm going to be going through demons, I believe, if I have time. If I don't, then I'll have to use a pre-recording that I did yesterday. So with that, I'm going to take off, and have a great day. Bye-bye.